Hello guys, today we'll be looking at percentages non-calculator. So what do I mean by that? First of all, I'll look at the case whereby we are asked to find the percentage of something that is a multiple of 100. So let's say you're asked to find X percent of H, where H is a multiple of 100. So let's say, for example, what is 5% of 500? So before I go into much details, percentage means per 100, meaning for each 100 of something. So if I have 5% of 500, what this means is 5 for each 100 5 times. So that simply puts 5 times 5, which is 25. So that means 5% of 500 is 25. So in generalization, X percent of H, where H is a multiple of 100, is going to be X times H. For example, what is 7% of 300? That would be 7 times 3, which is 21. What is 12% of 600? Pause this video and try this. This would be 12 times 6, which is 72. What is 8% of 900? That would be 8 times 9, which is 72. The second case is if I have something that is a multiple of 50. Let's say we have X percent of F, where F is a multiple of 50. So how do I do that? Since we know that 50 is half of 100, so if I say, for example, what is 8% of 50? Since 8% of 100 is 8, 8% of 50 is going to be half of 8, which is 4. So how about if I have 12% of 150? So what would that be? I'll break this up into 2. So I'm going to have 12% of 100 plus 12% of 50. So 12% of 100 is 12, as we said before, plus 12% of 50, which is half of 12, that will be 6. So this will give us 18. So a generalization, it would be X percent of F, where F is a multiple of 50, is going to be X times the 100 part plus half of X. So for example, what would be 10% of 250? That would be 10 times 2 plus half of 10, which is equals to 20, plus 5, which is equals to 25. What would be 18% of 350? That would be 18 times 3 plus half of 18. So 18 times 3 is 54, plus half of 18, which is 9, and that will be equals to 63. I hope that is clear. The third case is if we have percentage of something that has a 25. For example, if I ask to find 8% of 125. So just like we did for 50, 25 in this case is a quarter of 100. So that would be 8% of 100 plus a quarter of 8. And that would be 8 plus 2, which is equals to 10. What will be 12% of 225? That would be 12% of 200, which is 24, plus a quarter of 12, which is equals to 3. And that will give us 27. What would be 16% of 325? That would be 16 times 3, which is equals to 48, plus a quarter of 16, which is equals to 4. And that would give us 52. I hope that makes sense. So those are the three special cases of percentages that do not require calculator. Another special kind of percentage that I would like to talk about is finding 10% and 5% of something. So if 10% of 500 is going to be equals to 50, 10% of 520 is going to be equals to 52. All we have to do is just to remove the last digit. How about if I have 10% of 621? It's simple. Instead of crossing out 1, you just put a decimal place. That will be 62.1. So the same way, what will be 1% of 621? So that means we have to move it 2 decimal places. So that will be 6.21. What will be 1% of 723? That would be 7.23. Very easy. So the same way, what will be 5% of 640? So first of all, we try to find 10% of 640, which is equals to 64. So 5% is going to be half of 64, which is 32. So what will be 5% of 726? So if 10% of 726 is 72.6, then 5% of 726 is going to be half of 72.6, which is going to be 36.3. The same way, if we know 1% of something, then we can find 2% and 99% of it. So for example, what is 2% of 365? If 1% of 365 is 3.65, then 2% is just double of that, which is going to be 7.3. So 2% of that is going to be 7.3. I hope that makes sense. Let's attempt the following question. Question 1. Calculate 80% of 30. 80% of 30 can be written as 8% of 300, which is the same thing as 8 times 3, which is 24. Question 2. A bag of sugar contains 420 grams. A special offer packet contains an extra 15%. Work out how much extra sugar is in the special offer packet. So this is straightforward. First, we find 10% of 420, which is equals to 42. 5% of 420, which is equals to half of 42, which is 21. Then that makes 15% of 420 to be equals to 42 plus 21, which is 63. So the answer is 63. A new car is priced at 7,500 in a sale and it is reduced by 20%. Calculate the reduction in price. So this is straightforward. First, we find 10% of 7,500, which is equals to 750. Then that implies 20% is just double of that, which is equals to 1,500. So the answer is 1,500. Question 4. 3% of 600, that's simple. That will be 3 times 6, which is equals to 18. Mary wins £400. She gives 50% to her mother. So 50% of 400 is half of 400, and that will be equals to 200. Mary gives 20% of 400 to her sister. So 20% of 400 is going to be 80, and she keeps the rest. So her mother receives 200, her sister receives 80. So if Mary keeps the rest, so 280 take away from 400, she'll be left with 120. So Barry's salary is £14,000 and he is due to get an increase of 5%. So what will be the increase? So that's very simple. First of all, 10% of 14,000 is what? That will be equals to 1,400. So 5% of 14,000 is going to be half of that, which is 700. Harry wants to buy a motorbike that costs £600. He saves 30% of his wages each month. Each month, Harry earns £400. How many more will it take Harry to save enough money? Simple. So if he saves 30% of his wages every month and he earns £400, so first we have to find 30% of 400, and that will be equals to 30 times 4, which is equals to 120. Then, if the motorbike costs £600, we have to do 600 divided by 120, and that equals to 0 take out 0, 60 divided by 12 is 5. So the answer is 5 months. There are 20,000 fans at a football match. 12% of the fans are women. So how many women attended the match? Simple. First of all, what is 10% of 20,000? That is equals to 2,000. So what will be 1% of 20,000? That will be equals to 200. So that means 2% of 20,000 is going to be 400. So all we have to do is to add 2,000 because that's 10% plus 400 because that's 2%. So that makes 12% of 20,000 to be equals to 2,400. So the answer is 2,400 women attended the match. 75% of 300. So what would that be? So 75% is a special percentage which equates 3/4 of something. So, well, first of all, what is 1/4 of 300? So half of 300 is 150. So 1/4 of 300 is going to be half of 150, which is 75. So 3/4 of 300 is going to be 3 times 75. So which will be 225. So the answer is 225. At From International Train Station, 35% of trains were late in a week. In that week, there were 440 trains. So calculate how many trains were on time. So if 35% of the trains were late, it simply means that 65% of the 440 trains were on time. So how do we find 65% of something? First of all, again, I'll start with 10%. So 10% of 440 is equals to 44, correct? 5% of 440 is going to be half of that, which is 22. So if 10% is 44, then 60% is going to be 6 times 44, which is equals to 6 times 4 is 24, so that will be 240 for 6 times 40 plus 24, and that would make 264. So if 60% of 440 is 264, then 65% of 440 is going to be 264 plus 5%, which is 22. So the answer is 286. 286 trains were early. So work out 98% of 700. Simple. First of all, what is 10%? If you remember, 10% is going to be 70. So that means 1% is going to be 7, and that makes 2% to be 14. So 98% is going to be 700 take away from 700 minus 14. That will be 686. A company is hosting a charity meal. 800 people work for the company. It is estimated that 70% of the employees will attend. It is expected that if an employee attends, they will bring a partner. The cost of attending the meal is £5. How much money will be raised for charity? So if 800 people work for company, so what's 70% of 800? That would be 70 times 8, which is 560 people. So it is expected that if an employee attends, they will bring a partner. So that will be multiplied by 2. So that would be 1,120 people are going to attend. So the cost of attending the meal is £5. So that would be 1,120 times 5. So that would be 0. 5 times 2 is 10. 0, 1. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 1, that will be 6. And 5 times 1 is 5. So that will be £5,600 will be raised for charity. Therein claims if he increases a number by 10% and increases its answer by 10%, it would be an increase of 20% overall. Show that therein is incorrect. Simple. So let's say we have 100. So what is 10% of 100? That will be equals to 10. So if I increase 100 by 10%, it means 110% of 100 is going to be 110. So if I increase that by 10% again, so that means 10% of 110 is going to be 11. So 110% of 110 is going to be 110 plus 11, which is equals to 121. Now, what will be 20% of 100? 20% of 100 is 20. That means 120% of 100 is equals to 120. So since 120 is not equals to 121, that implies that therein is incorrect. Question 14. Some students sit an exam. The pass mark is 80%. So as we know, 80% is the same as 8 over 10, which is the same as 4/5, which is also the same as 0.8. So all we have to do is to convert each of these marks to percentage and compare it with 80% or decimal. So we start with the first one. Since there are 40 marks in each test, the first result is 30 marks from Martin. So we do 30 over 40, which is equals to 3 over 4, and without doubt 3 over 4 is less than 4/5. So that means Martin failed. Gina scored 35 marks. So 35 over 40, it can be simplified to 7 out of 8, which is greater than 4/5. So that means Gina passed. Ricky scored 31 marks. So 31 over 40 is the same thing as 3.1 over 4. Now 3.1 over 4 compared to 4/5. So all we have to do is to multiply both numerator and the denominator by 5. So 3.1 multiplied by 5 is going to give us 15.5 over 20, and 4 times 4 is 16, and 4 times 5 is 20. So without much stress, that implies that Ricky failed, as 15.5 is less than 16. Vicky scored 38 marks. 38 over 40 can be simplified to 19 over 20, which is obviously greater than 4 over 5. And Chloe, without more stress, obviously failed, since Martin also failed. So the fraction of the student that passed is how many students passed? We have Gina and we have Vicky, and the rest failed. So that is 2 out of 5. Question 15. Work out 45% of 540. Again, we know that 10% of 540 is going to be 54, and 5% of 540 is going to be half of 54, which is 27, and that implies that 40% of 540 is going to be 4 times 54. So if 4 times 50 is 200, and 4 times 4 is 16, so that will be 216. So that will make 45% of 540 to be equals to 216, add together with 5%, which is 27. And that is going to add up to 243. 2 glasses contain orange juice. A 400 ml glass is 40% full, and the 300 ml glass is half full. Which glass contains less juice? So it's very simple. So what is 40% of 400? So that will be 40 times 4, which is 160 ml. And 300 ml glass is half full. So half of 300 is 150. So which glass contains less juice? So that is obvious. That will be the 300 ml glass. In a country, people have to pay tax on their salary as shown, 30% on all earnings over £10,000. David earns 16,000. Calculate how much tax he has to pay. So what is 30% of 16,000? So that's easy. So that is going to be, first of all, 10% of 16,000 is going to be 1,600. So that implies 30% of 16,000 is going to be 1,600 multiplied by 3, and that will give us 4,800.